We also examined the length of days for students and staff by taking a look at the beginning and ending times of those days. And again, the reason we do this is if your two districts should happen to be combined to become one, it's going to be important that the staff at each grade level range, elementary, middle, and high school, have the same length of day that students at the elementary level, if there's more than one elementary, and you'll see that our recommendation will be that, is that there be a common length of day and, if possible, beginning and ending times of the day for staff and students. And what we found was, as you can see, there were some differences. For example, the South Seneca staff has a 7-hour day every day of the week. However, in Romulus, it varies depending upon the day of the week. It's 7 hours and 25 minutes long, Monday to Thursday, but yet a shorter day on Fridays and the day before holidays. So there is a little bit of difference there in terms of the staff day. Student days, there is a difference in terms of the beginning times and ending times of the student day, as well as 20 minutes difference in terms of the overall length of the day for students. And again, this is important if you have multiple sites, as we will recommend for elementary, that there be comparable days, length of days in each situation. We examined the number of sections of grades at the elementary level, and as well as the size of those various sections, and I'll just point out a couple of things. First of all, South Seneca, being a little bit larger, has a few grades where there are 3 sections of the grade. As you can see, kindergarten 3 in 2011-12, 3 sections versus 2 over in Romulus. So there's, just being a little bit larger district, there's more sections. And we also took a look at the size of each section. And as you can see, the section sizes are, for the most part, a little bit larger in South Seneca, but both districts, the latest figures that we have available to us, compare very favorable to statewide averages. And again, this becomes important because in a multiple elementary setting in a single district, you want to try to keep class sizes at the elementary, regardless of which school the youngster is in, at roughly the same size, right? So that one building doesn't have large kindergartens, for example, and another one has much smaller ones. So that becomes important in a single district setting. And of course, as you can see, because we've already mentioned the different grade level patterns, that 5th grade is treated a little bit differently in Romulus and South Seneca, with Romulus having homerooms essentially in South Seneca in a departmentalized setting, South Seneca having essentially homerooms in more a self-contained setting. Another important variable regarding the elementary program that we examined was the curricula that's used with the youngsters in each of the schools. And this is where we found a major difference. As you can see, looking down through this list, this is only a partial list of what's contained in the report. This is just the language arts and mathematics. But if you look down through the list, you will see there are significant differences in the curricula that's used in the 2 districts. Again, this becomes an important variable when you're a single district, because having multiple elementary schools, you want to have the same programs used in each of the schools, again, to ensure comparability for the youngsters, regardless of which elementary they attend. So that's why it becomes an important variable. That led us to our second recommendation, which is here. We believe that the best way to resolve some of these differences, particularly with the curricular differences, is that the staff get together, teachers and administrative representatives, and study the existing programs and perhaps some other ones that are out there that neither district is using currently, and then make recommendations to you as boards of education about what they think is the best curriculum that should be employed in the elementary grades. Of course, ultimately, it would be the board approval, but hopefully with a recommendation based on this study. And in the interim, we would recommend that existing materials be used as they are currently in the two districts. And quite honestly, knowing the cost of a lot of these instructional programs, they usually have to be phased in for cost variables, if nothing else anyhow. So we would recommend that that be left to this committee to study in the first year following a merger. Another element of the elementary program that we studied was how much special area time, art, music, physical education, and library or computer instruction each youngster got in various grade levels. And as you can see from this table, we found, again, some significant differences across the two districts. For example, if you look at music, kindergarten in Romulus gets music one time a week for 30 minutes. In South Seneca, it's 2 times a week for 30 minutes. You can see some similarities, but there's some significant differences. And this becomes important, again, for that notion of comparability. So regardless of which elementary youngsters in, they should be getting the same amount of art, music, phys ed as any other youngster in a different building. So we take a look at this, and as something that's important, it has to be resolved. We also took a snapshot of student performance at the elementary level, and the most common thing that's looked at, that we used as well, was the New York State test in English, language arts, and mathematics. And as you can see, we took a 4-year snapshot. This is just one table for grade 3 math for these 4 years. And I know the board members, you probably realize that the state uses 4 different achievement levels for youngsters. And what we try to look at is, are there wide differences that consistently appear in mathematics and or language arts from one district to the next. And quite honestly, we did find some differences, not huge differences. On average, I would say that if you looked at these and studied them a long time as we did, you might find that there's a little bit better performance in Romulus and South Seneca. But we also know that with such small numbers of youngsters, when we take a look at percentages in particular, 1 or 2 youngsters can skew those percentages pretty dramatically. So we don't put a lot of weight on the percentages. But so in a nutshell, there might be a little bit better historical performance in Romulus and South Seneca, but we don't think that that's necessarily indicative of anything overly significant. And I might add that when you see the socioeconomic differences in the districts, we've already indicated a little bit of that. Some of that we know from research accounts for achievement differences as well. That's pretty well documented. Our 4th recommendation, based on studying the elementary program. Because there are some differences in the curriculum and so forth, that we think it's very important that immediately after a merger, and all school districts do this now anyhow, because we're becoming much more data-driven, as I know you as board members know, that there be close scrutiny given to ensure that the achievement differences that occur or may occur between elementary schools and youngsters after a merger, that they can't be, those differences are not attributed to school factors. Curriculum that's used or instructional methodology and so forth, that there may be some non-school related factors, but that there close scrutiny be given to this and understanding tried to be arrived at. I'm going to turn it over to Alan. He took a look at the middle and high school program, and he'll review that for us as well.
Thank you, Bill. Good evening, everyone. As Bill mentioned, I'm going to start off talking, he's really covered the elementary school. I'm going to talk about the middle school and the high school and really look at some of the same things for those grade levels that Bill looked at for the elementary school. The first table that we have in front of us talks about the staff day and the student day, when they begin, when they end, how long they are. And what we find at the middle school and the high school level is that these pointers don't work. This one does. Yes. You can see here the start times for the staff, 7:40 and 7:50 for Romulus, 7:40 for South Seneca are pretty close. Same length of day discussion that Bill had with the elementaries. When we look at the student start time, students start at 8 o'clock in Romulus at the middle school and the high school, at 7:45 in South Seneca. And the length of the day is pretty similar. As many times as we proof this report, as I was getting ready for tonight, I noticed that we do have an error. This 3:30 dismissal time for South Seneca Middle School, High School should really be 2:15. We'll make that change. And I apologize for that. This 6 hours and 30 minutes is correct, and the text in the report is correct if you're following along. It's just that one number in the table that we need to change. But we don't see this as a major obstacle at all. In fact, the work day for staff and the student day are much more similar in the two districts at the middle school and the high school level than they are at the elementary. We don't see this as a major issue at all.